Hello all, welcome to this session. In this session, I am going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, can we store duplicate values into array elements in Java? The answer is yes. Into an array, we can store duplicate values and Java will allow it. Why? Because in arrays, we have a concept known as indexing concept. Because of this indexing concept, arrays will allow you to store duplicate values into the same array. Okay, let me practically demonstrate this for you. Further, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class here. I'll show you practically how arrays will allow you to store duplicate values into the same array. I'll say class O with main method. Inside the main method, I'm going to create an array, guys. Okay, I'm going to create an array here. Integer array AR is equal to new int of, let's say size of the array is 3. Now, I would like to store some value, say 9, into the first array element, okay, AR of 0. Array, into the same array, I can store 3 elements. At the index 0, I am storing 9. AR of 1 is equal to, again, I am storing 9, you see. 9 is a duplicate value, right? 9 is already stored in AR of 0. That is, at the index 0 of this array, 9 is already stored. At the index 1 of the array, 9 is again stored. Again, if I give AR of 2 is equal to 9, it will accept guys, okay? No matter how many duplicate values you give according to the size of the array, doesn't matter guys. All the elements can have the same value. Duplicate values are allowed in array because this 9 is stored at the index 0 of the array. This 9 is stored at the index 1 of the array. This duplicate value 9 is stored at the index 2 of the array. Since the array elements are differentiated with the help of index, they are of different index, they can store duplicate values without any problem. So if I print it out, system.out.println, if I say arrays.toString of, and if I try to print this array, all the duplicate values will be there in the array, guys. Okay, without any problem, you'll get all the duplicate values in the array. Run the code and see that all the duplicate values will be there. You see, in this array, there are 3 elements, and each and every element is a duplicate of each other. Okay, this example proves that into an array, we can store duplicate values because these duplicate values are differentiated with the help of index. Because this 9 is stored at the index 0, this 9 is stored at the index 1, this 9 is stored at index 2. So because of the indexing concept, arrays will allow you to store duplicate values without any problem. Okay. So what's the answer for this question? Can we store duplicate values into the same single array? Okay, in Java, the answer is yes, guys. Into the single array, we can store duplicate values because in arrays we have how that is possible to store duplicate values into the array, same array, because of the indexing concept. Arrays will store the elements, okay, in the computer memory according to the index, okay, starting from 0 to and depending on the size -1 index, okay. Since the duplicate values are differentiated with the help of index, it is possible in Java to store duplicate values into the same array. So with practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I am going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, explain array index out of bounds exception in Java. Let me answer. We get this exception in Java on trying to store more elements, okay, than the size of the array. When you created an array, you specified the size of the array, let's say as 3. But if you try to store more elements into the array, that is, let's say you're trying to store 4 to 5 elements into the array, whose size is only 3, in that case, you will get array index out of bounds exception during the runtime. It's a runtime error or exception. You will not get this compiler error. But when you run the program, and in the program, when you try to store more elements into the array than the size of the array, than the specified size of the array, in that case, you'll get the exception. Okay. And another case where you'll get this array index out of bounds exception is you try to access the, okay, array elements which are bigger in the size of the array, bigger than the size of the array. For example, the size of the array is 3, but you are trying to access the 4th element or 5th element from the array, which is not possible. There also you'll get array index out of bounds exception. Okay, if you are going beyond the size of the array and trying to store the elements or trying to access the elements from the array beyond the size of the specified size of the array, then you will get this exception, guys. Let me practically demonstrate this for you. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this class as Q, class Q with main method I'll create. And inside this, I'm going to create an array with some specified size. Okay. So integer array AR is equal to new int of, I'll just give the size. And if I try to store the first element into the array, no problem. You'll not get any error. The second, you'll not get any error. 2, AR of 2 at the third element. Okay, this is the first element I'm storing into the array, second element, third element. And trying to store fourth element now. Here, I mentioned the size of the array is 3. That means only 3 elements I can store into this particular array. But if I try to store fourth element into the array, I am going to get array index out of bounds exception. Run this code and observe that you will get array index out of bounds exception. Array index out of bounds exception. So the size of the array is 3. But you see, you are getting the exception or runtime error. While running the code, you will get the exception. The Java compiler will not give you any error. The exception is coming as array index out of bounds exception because you're trying to store fourth element into the array, though the size of the array is only 3. Okay. So similarly, what other thing is like, for example, if I say system.out.println AR of 4, if I say, okay, the size of the array is 3. So 0, 1, 2 are allowed. But here fourth index, third index, even third index or fourth index, not possible, right? So if the size of the array is 5, then AR of 4 will be possible. AR of index 4, that means fifth element, okay, will be possible. But here only 3 elements can be stored into the array and trying to access. Now we are trying to access the fifth element of the array, which is not there. In that case also you'll get the same exception, that is array index out of bounds exception. This is same exception, array index out of bounds exception, and during runtime you'll get, because the size of the array is only 3 and you are trying to access the array element having the index 4, which is the fifth element of the array, which is not possible because the size of the array is only 3. Fourth, fifth element is not possible. Okay. So with practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you and explained what exactly is array index out of bounds exception and when do it occur. Okay, in different cases I covered as part of this session. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I am going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, what are arrays in Java? Let me answer. Arrays in Java allows us to store multiple values of same data type into a single variable. Let's say you have created a variable and declared that variable with some data type. Instead of array, you declared that variable with some data type. In that case, into that single variable, you can store only one value. If you try to store more than one value, Java will give you a compiler error. What if you declare the same variable with array data type? Okay, array type. In that case, into that single variable, we can store multiple values of same data type. That too, into a single variable, you can store more than one value. That is possible with the help of arrays. So in simple terms, arrays in Java are used to store multiple values of same data type into a single variable. This is what exactly arrays are. Into a normal variable, you cannot store more than one value, whereas into the variable declared as arrays, you can store multiple values of same data type, okay, into the single variable. Let me practically demonstrate this and prove you that how we can store multiple values of same data type into a single variable declared as array. Okay. So for that, I'll just create a new class here. I'll just do one thing. Just create a new class. I'll just say new class. I'll just name this class as class R. With main method, I'll create. Now, inside that, I'll create a variable, normal variable. I'll just name this variable as A and declare that variable as int data type. And into this variable, how many values I can store? If it is not an array, you see I have not declared this variable as array type. It's a normal data type. I declared this variable. So into this single variable, how many values I can store? Only one value. Let's say 9 I am storing. That's okay. You see, I'm not getting any compiler error. What if I try to store more than one values into this variable, like providing some curly braces and 9 comma 1 comma 5 comma 7 like this? If I try to store multiple values into the same variable, okay, 4 values I would like to store into a single variable, which is declared with in data type. It is not possible in Java, guys. You are going to get a compiler error. Okay, you have to convert this into an array in order to store these multiple values into a single variable. Into a single variable, you cannot store more than one value. Only one value you can store like this. What if I create one more variable, say b, and I'm going to declare this variable b as integer array. Rather than normal integer data type, I'm going to declare this variable, the another variable b as integer array type. Okay, so that I can store multiple values. You see, not just one value, I can store multiple values, 9, comma 5, comma 1, comma 7. I'm storing multiple values into a single variable which is declared with integer array data type. But into a normal variable with this okay, declared with in data type, only one value. But into a variable which is declared as integer array type, there I can store multiple values of same type into the single variable. Okay, here you see 9, 5, 1, 7 are integer values of same type. I can store it in a single variable, though they are multiple values of the same data type or type. I can store it in a single variable. This is possible with arrays, guys. Okay, but in variables, I can store only one value, whereas in arrays, we can store multiple values. Okay, of same type into a single variable. Okay, so with this practical demonstration, hope you got an answer for this question. Okay, so what are arrays in Java? Arrays in Java are used to store multiple values of same type into a single variable. Okay, that's what arrays are. If someone asks you what arrays are in Java, you have to give this as an answer. And if they want more thing, you can explain about normal variable where you can store only one value, whereas into the arrays, we can store more than one value of same type into a single variable. Okay, so with this program and logic and practical demonstration, you can easily answer the question, guys. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye bye. Hello all, welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, how do you declare arrays in Java? Let me answer. In Java, if you have to declare arrays, there are two ways, guys. Okay. One of the ways, beside the data type, you have to specify the square brackets followed by the variable name or array name. This is one way that you can declare the arrays in Java. The other way is, you only specify the data type, you don't provide the square brackets, but beside the variable name or array name, you can specify the square brackets. That means there are two ways that you can use for declaring the arrays in Java, this way or this way. I prefer the first way. It's readability wise, I feel good, but it's not like everyone have to use the same thing that I'm using. So let's say data type array, that is int, let's say data type in place of data type, let's say for example, int is there, integer array name. Okay, readability wise, I feel good. So I use the first way. And some other people may also use the other way where int they will say, and variable name or array name. Okay, array name, something like that. Okay, with square bracket will come beside the variable name instead of data type. Okay, here square bracket is coming beside the data type. These are the two ways in which you can declare the arrays. Any of the ways you can follow, guys. I prefer the first way. Second way is also preferred by other people in the industry. Okay, so let me practically demonstrate and show you how to declare the arrays in two different ways in Java. Further, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class here. I'll just name this class as class T with main method. I'll show you the first way of creating or declaring an array. Okay, first way of declaring an array in Java. How do you declare? It's all about not creating, it's declaring. Okay, just declaring an array. Like you declare a variable with some data type, like how you declare an array with some array type. Okay, that's what is the question. Only declaration part I have to show. So first way is like, for example, integer array. Int is a data type and array. Square bracket will make it integer array and followed by array name. Let's say AR1. So I'll create one more array with another way. I'll declare this array. I'll only give the data type, and here I'll say beside the array name, I'll give the square brackets. Okay. Either you can put the square brackets beside the data type of the array, or you can put the square brackets beside the name of the array. Okay. So either of these ways you can use. I prefer this one. You can also use this one to create an array, guys. Okay. So these are the two ways in Java where we can use for declaring arrays. Okay. With practical demonstration, I have answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, how to create an array using the shortcut representation in Java. Let me answer. There are multiple ways of creating an array in Java. That is, one is the actual representation of creating the array. Other one is shortcut representation of creating an array. The shortcut way of creating an array is something like this, guys. Okay, we don't have to use a new keyword here. So we have to declare this variable with array type, and we have to assign these values, multiple values to this array provided inside the curly braces. This is the shortcut representation of the array. But in the actual representation of the array creation, we use new keyword. Okay, and we'll create the array using the new keyword. But in the shortcut representation, we don't have to use a new keyword. So let me practically demonstrate the shortcut representation of creation of the array. So for that, I'll move to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this class as, for example, 2. And I'll create a main method. Inside the main method, I'm going to create an array. Okay, inside the main method, I'm going to create an array. If I create an array like this, integer array AR is equal to new int of 3. This is not the shortcut representation of the array. These are actual representation of the array. This is how we create array by default. Okay, but there is shortcut representation for this. And not only creating an array, guys. Okay, not only we are creating an object for an array here, but also here declaration is there, creation of the object for the array is there, and to initialize again we have to write separate lines like this. Okay, a of 0 is equal to 9, AR of 1 is equal to 5, AR of 2 is equal to 7. Like that, I have to assign multiple values. Okay, like this I have to assign multiple values. That's okay. But if I go with the shortcut representation, I don't have to write this many number of lines, guys. Okay, with the shortcut representation of the array or creation of the array, I don't have to write 4 lines in this example. The array size is 3. I have to write 4 lines in order to initialize this array elements and all those stuff. But with the shortcut representation of the array, I don't have to use this side. I have to remove that side, provide the curly braces, and these values I have to provide here 9, 5, 7. 9, 5, 7. These 3 lines are no more required, guys. You see, the shortcut representation of the array is mostly used, guys, in the Java programs to reduce the number of lines. When compared to the actual representation, shortcut representation will only take 1 line. You also don't have to use new keyword, and you don't have to write separate lines for initializing these array elements. But here, initialization, creation, declaration happens in the same line in the shortcut creation of the array. So hope, guys, with practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. That is how to create an array using shortcut representation in array. For an example, this is how we are going to create a shortcut representation of the array in Java. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, what are the different ways in Java to initialize the array elements? Let me answer. There are multiple ways using which we can initialize the array elements in Java. The first way is like this. Okay, you have to create an array like this. AR is equal to new integer array, let's say, for example. And after that, in order to initialize these array elements, I have to use AR of 0. AR of 0 is equal to 9. AR of 1 is equal to 5. AR of 2 is equal to 7. Okay, this is one way of initializing the array elements in Java. What is the second way? The second way of initializing the array elements is using the shortcut representation like this. Integer array AR is equal to 9, 5, 7. The curly braces will provide the list elements. Okay, this is the second way of initializing the array. And the third way is like this. Integer array AR is equal to new integer array curly braces, provide a semicolon here 9, 5, 7. This is the third way of initializing the array elements in Java. Any of these ways you can use for initializing the array elements in Java. Let me practically demonstrate this one for you. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. Just name this class as 3 with main method, and I'll create an array. So here I'll create the array in the first way. Integer array AR. AR1 is equal to new integer array of 3. The size of the array is 3 here. I can store 3 elements into the array. AR of 0 is equal to 9. AR of 1 is equal to 5. AR of 2. Here AR of 1, AR1 is the name of the array. AR2 is equal to 7. Now print it out. System.out.println arrays dot toString of AR1. Okay, we are converting this array into string and printing in the output console. Okay, this is the first way of initializing the array elements. The second way, I'll show you. The second way of initializing the array elements is integer array AR2, let's say, is equal to using the shortcut representation inside the curly braces 9, 5, 7. Okay. So here system directly, it's a shortcut representation. You don't have to write 4 to 5 lines. Instead, only one line will be enough for initializing and all. Here again, arrays dot to string of, I have to give the name of the array, that is AR2. AR2. It will convert the array into the string using the arrays dot to string method, and it will print it out. It will print the array also. You see, the array got printed, array elements got printed. Now the third way of initializing the array elements is integer array AR3 is equal to new int of, I don't have to specify the size, but beside that square brackets, I have to provide the curly braces, and I have to specify the elements, array elements like this. Okay. Now system.out.println arrays dot to string AR3. Okay. This will convert the arrays dot to string method will convert the array to the string and print it out in the output using the println statement in the string format. Third way of creating an array. Okay, these are the three ways of initializing the arrays in Java. Okay, what are the different ways? If you get an interview question like this, what are the different ways in Java to initialize array elements? You have to explain these three ways, guys. Okay, so with practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, how do we access elements of an array in Java? Let me answer. In array, in order to access the elements, we have to use the index of the element. Okay, array elements start with the index 0. So if you want to access the first element, we have to use index 0. Array name in the square bracket, we have to provide the index. That is 0 means first element. If you give 3 means this will access the fourth element. Okay, AR of 3 will access. In this example, AR of 3 is provided, which will access the fourth element. Okay, if you want to access the fourth element of the array, we have to use the index 3. If you use the index 0 here, it will access the first element. Okay, so using the index of the element, we can access the array elements. Okay, let me practically demonstrate this one for you. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this as 4 with main method. And here I'll create an array, integer array AR is equal to, here you can create the array in different ways, like a new, or otherwise you can provide curly braces for the shortcut representation of the array. I'll give some values 9, 5, 7, 6, 8, 2, 4. I think this much is enough. Okay. So I've created an array using the shortcut representation. Now, if I want to access these elements of the array, okay, we have to use the index value. Okay, using the index value of these array elements, we have to access the array elements, guys. If I say system.out.println AR of 5, sixth element of the array will be printed. Okay, 5 plus 1. Index will start with 0. This is the fifth index, means sixth element. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That means number 2 will be retrieved and printed. In arrays, if you want to access the array elements, you have to use the index value of the array element. You see, using the index value 5, we were able to retrieve the array element 2 and print in the output console. So this is an example, guys. Like that, if you want to access the first element of the array, you have to give AR of 0. So 9 will be retrieved and printed. System.out.println AR of 1. This will retrieve and print 5. System.out.println AR of 2. This will retrieve the third element. AR of 3. 6. System.out.println AR of 4. Fifth element. System.out.println AR of 5. Then finally system.out.println AR of 6. Okay, this will retrieve 9, this will retrieve 5, then 7, then 6, then 8, then 2, then 4. Run the code, right click run as Java application, and you will see that 957 6824 will be retrieved and printed. So hope guys you got the answer for this question. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, in Java, index of arrays starts from where? The answer is 0. Okay, indexing in arrays starts from 0. The first element of the array will be stored at the index 0. Okay, so let me demonstrate this in a practical way. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this class as 5, let's say, and create a main method. Inside the main method, I'm going to, create an array. Okay, integer array. AR is equal to new int of 3. So here I am specifying the size of the array, right? 3 is the size of the array. So once I create an array here using the new keyword, once I create an object for this array having the size 3 in the computer memory, okay? In the computer memory, let's say this is the computer memory. In the computer memory, some memory will be allocated for this array object, okay? For this array object that is created using the new keyword, some memory will be allocated. And this memory that is allocated for this array object can be splitted into 3 parts, okay? Can be divided into 3 parts. 1, 2, 3, okay? 3 slots. So where there are 3 elements, so 3 slots, and the first element's index will be 0. So if I say AR of 0 is equal to 9, AR of 1 is equal to 5, AR of 2 is equal to 7. What will happen? Here you see there's an index. There's an index, guys. Index 0, index 1, index 2. Okay, index 0, 1, 2. The first memory slot, total size of the array is 3, and the first memory slot will have the index 0, second memory slot will have the index 1, third memory slot will have the index 2. So when I say AR of 0 is equal to 9, 9 will be stored into this index 0 position. AR of 1 is equal to 5 means 5 will be stored into the index 1 position. AR of 2 is equal to 7 means 7 will be stored into the third element of the array. Okay, third position of the array. So index in array starts from the 0 value. Okay, 0 to size minus 1. Here the size of the array is 3. So the last element's index will be size minus 1, that is 2. Okay, 3 minus 1, 2. The first element's index will be 0. Index will start from 0 in Java. So with practical demonstration, I answer this question for you. In Java, index of the array starts from 0. That's the answer, guys. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, how to find the index of last element in the array in Java. Let me answer. In order to find the index of the last element in the array in Java, we have to calculate this. We have to first find the size of the array. And from the size of the array, you have to do -1. Okay, when you say size of the array -1, you will get the index of the last element of the array. Okay, how to find the size of the array? Using the length predefined variable of arrays, we can find the size of the array. AR.length will find the size of the array. For example, AR is array name, dot length will find the size of that particular array. And -1, when you say, it will give you the last element's index value. Okay, the first element's index value will be 0, whereas the last element's index value will be size of the array -1. Okay, let me practically demonstrate this one for you. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this class as 6. With main method, I'll create an array here. Integer array, AR is equal to new, or I can directly create a shortcut representation of the array like this. 9, 5, 7, 6, 2, 4. Okay, 6, 2, 4, 3. Now I would like to find the index of this last element of this particular array. What is the index of this last element of this array? I would like to find. To find that, we have to find the size of the array. To find the size of the array, we have to use length predefined variable. So this will give you the size of the array. Okay, AR.length will give you the size of the array. Int size of array, AR. Okay, size of AR is equal to, this is the size of the array, guys. And now, if you want to find the last element's index value, index of the array, okay, it's not value, last element's index of the array, okay, then what I have to do is, I have to simply say size of AR -1, okay, so that will give you last element index. is equal to. Now print it. System.out.println. Last element index. Run this code. Run this code. Right click, run as Java application. We'll get the last index. Okay, the element, last elements, array elements index value will get, that is 6. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, that is 6 is the last elements index value, index. Okay, number. The first element will have index 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Index 6 is, that is nothing but the 7th element of the array, which is the last element in this example. Okay, size of the array -1. In order to find the size of the array, we have to use ar.length, length predefined variable. And from that, you have to -1, you will get the last element's index. Okay, which is 6 in this example. So with practical demonstration, I have answered this question for you, how to find the index of last element in an array in Java by using this formula. Okay, size of the array -1. In order to find the size, we have to say array name dot length -1, which will give you the index of the last element in array. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I am going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, how do you iterate through an array elements in Java? Let me answer. In order to iterate through array elements in Java, we can use different loops. We can either use do while loop, we can also use while loop, we can use normal for loop with index, we can use for each loop without index. The best suitable loop for iterating through the elements in array in Java is for each loop, guys. Okay, this is the best loop that we can use out of all these loops for iterating through the elements. When it is not possible with for each loop, then only we go for the other loops like for loop. Okay, for loop is the simplest form anyhow when compared to the remaining loops. But if you want me to answer how do you iterate through an array in Java or array elements in Java, I'll simply say using for each loop, I'll say, because for each loop is mainly designed for arrays and collections frameworks. Okay, you can use for each loop with arrays and collections framework. Okay, so remaining loops we can use, but the important loop or the designed loop for iterating through the array elements or collections framework, array list, etc., is for each loop, guys. So I'm going to demonstrate this for each loop and show you how to use for each loop to iterate through an array elements or array in Java. Okay, for that I'll switch to Eclipse IDE, and in Eclipse IDE I'll create a new class. I'll just name this class as 7 with main method, let's say. And inside this main method, I'm going to create an array. Okay, integer array, AR is equal to, inside the curly braces, I'll provide the array elements, that is 9, 5, 7, let's say 8, 2, 4, 6, etc. Okay, these are the array elements. Now I want to iterate through all these array elements using the loops. Okay, using loops, using different loops in Java, we can iterate through the array or array elements, but the best loop or the designed loop for iterating through the array elements is for each loop, guys. Okay, for each loop is the appropriate or apt loop that we can use with arrays and collections. It's the designed for arrays and collections. Okay, you cannot use for each loop with other places, but for each loop is designed for arrays and collections. Okay, so I am going to use for each loop. So if you ask me how do you iterate, I'll say for each loop, using for each loop that I'm going to demonstrate. Okay, so I'll write the for, starting of the for loop and ending of the for loop. And here, each and every element of this array is starting with, okay, each and every element of this array individually is of int data type. So here, I should not be writing integer array. Rather, I have to write int because I have to see the data type of the individual array elements. Here, every array element have the data type as int. Okay, even though all the elements are stored into an array of integer array, individually, if you see the here array elements are of int data type. Okay, int. So AE, I'll say, you can give any name, AE, X, Y, Z, any you can give. And then you can give the array name. This is how we have to write the for each loop. Okay, this is array, and this is some, okay, temporary element. You can give any name. Okay, so, and here system.out.println, if I say AE, what will happen is all the array elements will be iterated with the help of this for each loop. Okay, we can iterate through the array elements or array. How do you iterate through array or array elements? Okay, in Java. Okay, So like this, if I run this code, what will happen is the array will be created with these elements. And from this array, these are the elements we have. In that, the first element is 9 will be assigned here and 9 will be printed. Okay. And again, it will go and check if there are any other elements in this array. Yes, these are the remaining elements in the array. In that first element, 5 will be taken and 5 will be printed. Again, in the remaining elements, any other elements left, these are the remaining elements. In that first element, 7 will be taken and 7 will be printed. And in the remaining elements, okay, 8 will be taken and assigned to this and 8 will be printed. In the remaining elements, 2 will be taken, 2 will be assigned and 2 will be printed. Remaining elements, 4 and 6 are there. In that 4 will be taken and 4 will be printed. In the remaining elements, 6 will be taken and 6 will be printed. And in the remaining elements, no other remaining elements are there, will come out of this for each loop. Now run the code and see that using for each loop, we can iterate through the arrays or array elements. You see all the elements of the array got printed starting from 9, 5, 7, 8, 2, 4, 6. Okay, everything got printed. Similarly, you can use do while loop, while loop, for loop, though for each loop is designed specially for arrays and collections framework. So we have used in this example to demonstrate how to iterate to the arrays or array elements using for each loop. But you can also use do while or for loop also if in other cases. Okay, but this is the main loop in Java for iterating through the array or array elements. Okay. So with practical demonstration, I answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, can we use do while loop for iterating through array elements in Java? The answer is yes. We can use do while loop in Java for iterating through the array elements. Let me practically demonstrate this for you. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this class as 7. With the main method, I'll create. I think 7 is already there. I'll create 8. With main method, I'll create. Inside the main method, I'm going to create an array. Okay. So how to create an array? Integer array. AR is equal to, I'll give some array elements here like 9, 5, 7, 8, 2, 6, 4. Okay. Some array elements I gave. Now I want to iterate through all these array elements, okay, using the do while loop. So how do you write the do while loop? Do keyword, starting of the do while loop, and here it will end with while loop, right? So here, before the do while loop starts, I have to create a variable like this and assign that with the index value 0. Let's say int I is equal to 0. Now here, system.out.println, AR of I will say, okay, AR of I. What will happen? Without any condition, we'll go inside the loop and AR of 0 means 9 will be printed. Okay. After that, here we'll check a condition. I less than the size of the array, AR dot length. I less than the size of the array, AR dot length. Okay. So, and also after printing this, I have to increment the value of the I plus plus like this. Okay. So the value of I is 0. And here AR of 0 is 9 will be printed. After that, the value of I will become 1 from 0 to 1. Now, 1 less than the size of the array. The size of the array is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 less than 7 is true. So again, it will go inside the loop and AR of 1 will be printed. That is 5 will be printed. Okay. It will become 2. 2 less than 7. AR of 2. 7 will be printed. 3. 3 less than 7. AR of 3. That is 8 will be printed. 4. 4 less than 7. AR of 4. 2 will be printed. 5. AR of 5 less than 7. AR of 5. 6 will be printed. Okay. So then 6. Here it will become 6. 6 less than 7. AR of 6. That is 4 will be printed. Then finally I will become 7. 7 less than 7 is false. Will come out of the for loop and all the elements of the array will be printed with the help of the, sorry, this is do while loop case. Okay, I said for loop. Okay, in flow. So we'll come out of the do while loop and all the elements of this array got printed with the help of the do while loop. Okay. So 9, 5, 7, 8, 2, 6, 4. All the elements of the array got printed here with the help of the do while loop. So with practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, can we use while loop for iterating through array elements in Java? The answer is yes. We can use while loop for iterating through array elements in Java. How? I'm going to practically demonstrate now. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this class as 9 and I'll create a main method. And inside the main method, I'm going to create an array. So here I'm going to create an array, integer array AR is equal to, I'll give some array elements here. I'll give some array elements 9, 5, 7, 1, 6, 4, 2, 3. Okay, like that some array elements I gave. I want to iterate through this array or array elements with the help of while loop. How to do that? For that, first I have to initialize a variable with the index value 0. Int I is equal to 0. After that, I'll write the while and condition. In the condition, I'll provide I less than the size of the array. Okay, I less than the size of the array. How to find the size of the array? I can simply say the array name dot length. This will find the size of the array. And inside the array, system.out.println, the array name, square brackets, have to provide I here, guys. AR of I. So what will happen? AR of 0. Initially, I is 0, guys, here. So 0 less than 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Total elements are 8. So 0 less than 8. AR of 0 is 9 will be printed. And here after printing, I'll increment the value of I by 1. So I will become, after printing 9 here, AR of 0, that is 9. After printing 9, I will become 1. 1 less than 8, AR of 1, 5 will be printed. I will become 2. Condition is 2. 2 less than 8 is true. AR of 2, 7 will be printed. It will become 3. 3 less than 8 is true. AR of 3, 1 will be printed. 4, 4 less than 8, AR of 4, 6 will be printed. 5, 5 less than 8, AR of 5, 4 will be printed. 6, 6 less than 8, AR of 6, 2 will be printed. 7, 7 less than 8, AR of 7, 3 will be printed. Finally, I will become 8. 8 less than 8 is false, will come out of the while loop. So this is how we can iterate through the array elements or array with the help of while loop. This is the logic we have to write. 9, 5, 7, 1, 6, 4, 2, 3. Okay. All the array elements got retrieved and printed by iterating through the array. So with practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, can we use for loop for iterating through array elements in Java? The answer is yes. We can use for loop for iterating through array elements in Java. Let me practically demonstrate this for you. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this class as 10. With main method, I'll create. And inside this, I'll create an array, guys. Integer array AR is equal to, I'll give the shortcut representation of the array for initializing the array elements 9, 5, 7, 6, 2, 8, 4. Okay, some array elements I gave. Now I want to iterate through all these array elements with the help of for loop. How to do that? I'll write for, and here I'll write int I is equal to 0. 0 means index 0. I less than the size of the array I have to give. What is the size of the array or how to find the size of the array using the length predefined variable. So the name of the array is AR dot length I will give and say I plus plus. Okay. And inside this, I'll print out system.out.println AR of I. Okay. I'll print out AR of I. So when I run this code, what will happen? So here I is 0. 0 less than the size of the array. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 0 less than 7 is true. We'll go inside the for loop. AR of 0, 9 will be printed. Now I plus plus, I will become 1. 1 less than 7. AR of 1, 5 will be printed. I will become 2. 2 less than 7. AR of 2, 7 will be printed. I will become 3. 3 less than 7. AR of 3, 6 will be printed. I will become 4. 4 less than 7. AR of 4, 2 will be printed. I will become 5. 5 less than 7. AR of 5, 8 will be printed. I plus plus 7, 6 I guess, 6. 6 less than 7, AR of 6, 4 will be printed. 7, 7 less than 7 is false, will come out of the for loop. This is how we can use for loop for iterating through the array or array elements. All the elements of the array got printed here, you see 9, 5, 7, 6, 2, 8, 4. So hope guys with practical demonstration, you got the answer for this question. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all, welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, what is the best loop for using with arrays in Java? Let me answer. In Java, we have different loops like while loop, do while loop, for loop, and for each loop. And if you ask me out of all these loops, what is the best suitable loop for using with arrays in Java? I will answer it as for each loop. Okay. For each loop is a loop in Java which is designed especially for arrays and collections framework. For each loop will work only with arrays and collections framework in Java. Hence, for each loop is the best loop for using with arrays in Java. Okay. So let me practically demonstrate this for you. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and here create a new class. I'll just name this class as one and name it anything. With main method, I'll create. Inside the main method, I'm going to create an array. Integer array. Let's say AR is equal to some array elements I'll write. Okay. So we have several loops available in Java like while loop, do while loop, for loop, and for each loop. Out of all these loops, the best loop that we can use with arrays is for each loop because it's designed only for arrays and collections framework. The only loop in Java which works only with arrays and collections framework is the for each loop. So the answer will be for each loop, guys. Okay. So here I'll write the for each loop for each and every element of this integer array is int data type. I'll write int array element colon AR. Okay. So individual elements of this array are of int data type. Okay. They are of int data type. So here I have to, you can give anything X, Y, Z here, whatever doesn't matter. And this side after the colon, we have to give the array name. And here inside this for each loop, I'll write AE, let's say. Okay. Whatever the variable name you gave here to the left side, that variable name you have to give here. Okay. So this for each loop will now iterate through all the array elements of this array and print one by them because of this print statement. Okay. So how this for each loop will work? So here this for each loop will check how many elements of the array are there. These are the elements. In that first element, 9 will be taken and assigned to this left side, colon left side variable, whatever the name you give, that it will be printed out here. Okay. So 9 will be printed out. After that, any other elements left out? Yes, these are the elements left out. In that, it will take the first element, assign this side, and 5 will be printed. Then remaining elements, these are the, in that 7 will be assigned, 7 will be printed. The remaining elements, 8 will be taken, assigned, and 8 will be printed. In remaining elements, 1 will be taken, 1 will be assigned, and 1 will be printed. In remaining elements, 2 will be taken, 2 will be assigned, 2 will be printed. Remaining elements, 6 will be taken, 6 will be assigned, and 6 will be printed. The remaining elements, only one element is there, that 4 will be assigned, 4 will be printed. And here, any other remaining elements, no remaining elements. So we'll come out of this for each loop. This is how the for each loop works with arrays and is the best loop suitable for working with arrays. Though you can use while loop, do while loop, for each loop with arrays, but for each loop is the best loop, best suitable loop for using with arrays. It will make the job convenient, okay, easy and convenient. Okay, you don't have to even worry about the index value and all those stuff. Okay, there's no index, there's no size. Simply for each loop will iterate through each and every element of the array, and it is specially designed for arrays and collections framework. Hence the answer is, what is the best loop for using with arrays in Java is for each loop is the answer, guys. So with practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye bye. Hello all, welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, can we use for each loop with arrays in Java? Let me answer. There are different types of loops in Java like while loop, do while loop, for loop, and for each loop. All these loops you can use for iterating through arrays or array elements in Java without any problem. But for each loop is the best suitable loop for arrays, guys. Okay. So it's designed for arrays and collections. For each loop will only work in Java for arrays and collections framework. Okay. So it's the best suitable loop you can say for working with arrays or array elements in Java. Okay. So the answer is yes, guys, we can use for each loop with arrays. Not only we can use, but it is the best suitable out of all the other loops we have in Java for arrays. Okay. So with practical demonstration, I'm going to answer this question for you. How we can use for each loop with arrays in Java. Okay. Further, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this as 2 with the main method. And here I'm going to create an array. I'll provide some array elements 9, 5, 7, 1, 2, 6, 4, 3. Okay, some array elements I gave. Now I'm going to create a for each loop. How to create a for each loop? After writing this for loop kind of stuff and inside the circular brackets, first you have to understand what is the data type of these individual elements of this array. If you take this 7, what is the data type of this 7 in data type? So provide int here and you can give any variable name, X, Y, Z, anything. And after that you give the array name. Okay. So, and inside this for each loop, you just write a print statement and provide this X here. Okay. So what happens is this for each loop will iterate through each and every element of this array. Okay. I'm not using an index. It's not required to find the size of this array. You see, when compared to for loop, if I have to use a for loop with this array, how to start with the index 0 and how to find the size of this array and all those stuff. But here for each loop is specially designed for arrays and collections. Okay, it only works with arrays and collections. Hence, if you get a chance to use a particular loop with the arrays, you first go with the for each loop. Okay, for each loop is the best loop, guys. Okay, and best suitable loop for arrays and collections. Okay, so that's why we go with the for each loop. And no index required, no size of the array required to be calculated. Directly like this, we can write the code and it will iterate through all the array elements. Okay, in a simplified way and print them or whatever you want to do, you can do. Okay. So here what happens is it will check in the for each loop, it will check, are there any elements in the array? Yes, there are elements in the array. That it will take the first one, assign to X. 9 will be assigned to X here. You can give any name for this. So if you're printing X here, 9 will be printed. Then it will check any other elements left. Yes, in that first element, 5 will be taken, 5 will be printed. Any other elements left. In that first element, 7 will be assigned and 7 will be printed. Any other elements left. First element 1 will be assigned, 1 will be printed. Any other elements left? Yes, 4 more elements. In that first element, 2 will be assigned, 2 will be printed. Any other elements left? Yes, 3 more elements, 6, 4, 3. 6 will be assigned, 6 will be printed. Any other elements left? 4 will be assigned and 4 will be printed. Any other elements left? 3 will be assigned, 3 will be printed. No more elements left, you'll come out of the for each loop. This is how the for each loop works with arrays and collections. So, and for each loop is the best suitable loop for working with arrays and for iterating through the array elements in Java. Okay. Out of all the loops, for each loop is the best. And this is how we can use for each loop with arrays or array elements for iterating through arrays or array elements in Java. All the elements of the array got iterated and printed in the output console. So hope guys, you got the answer for this question with practical demonstration. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I am going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, can we store different type of values into same array in Java? Let me answer. Yes, in Java, we can store different type of values into the same array with the help of object arrays. With normal arrays, it is not possible, guys. Normal arrays like integer array, char array, Boolean array, float array, double array, etc. array, it's not possible to store different type of values into same array. But when you create object array, it is possible to store multiple values where these multiple values are of different types, okay, different data types. In that case, it is allowed in Java, guys, if you use object arrays. But if you use a specific type of array like integer array, these multiple elements that you are storing into that integer array should be of integer literal type, okay, integer value type. But you cannot store decimal values into that variable of integer array and all, okay. So if you still want to store multiple values having different literal types into the same array, we have to create object arrays. This is the only solution in Java, guys. I'll explain in detail what exactly object arrays are and how we can use the object arrays to store values of different literal types into the same array variable. Okay. Further, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. First, I'll show you how that is possible. So 3, I'll just give the class name as 3 with main method. And inside this, if I create a normal array, instead of object array, if I create a normal array, let's say int array AR. So what type of values I can store? I can only store integer values 9, 5, 7, 1. You see, I'm not getting any error. But if I try to store a decimal value, like say 5.5 or Boolean value, let's say true, here false. Okay, char value, it will take. Then any other we have 1.2f. Okay, like that different type of literals we cannot store into a array variable if it is of int data type array. Okay, what if I convert this into object array? Errors will be gone. You see, literals having different data or literal type. Okay, integer literal, decimal literal, or double literal, floating point literal, char literal, boolean literal. All the different type of elements, all the multiple elements are of different literal types, can be stored into the same array if the array is of object array type. It's only possible with object arrays, guys. Okay, how it is possible? How the object arrays are able to store different literal types? Why? Because here is the concept, guys. Okay, object is a parent class of all the classes in Java. Okay, so object class is a parent class. Object is a parent class of all classes in Java. Okay, so how that is possible? For example, if I make this as integer class array, only integer values can be stored. Only 9 can be stored. Remaining, you see, 5.5 true, false, char, and boolean. This floating point are giving errors. What if I make it double here? Double array, double class array. You see, only decimal values are allowed, but remaining all literal types are not allowed. Okay. So if I make it Boolean, only true and false are allowed, and remaining literal types are not allowed. But if you consider here, I told you, right, object class is a parent class of all the classes in Java. So whether it be integer class or whether it is a double class, whether it is Boolean class, doesn't matter, guys. All these classes are the child classes of object class. Hence, you can assign the objects of this integer class, double class, Boolean class to the variables of the object parent class. That is the reason the literal types. Okay, that literal types. For example, if I give Boolean means Boolean literals can be stored into the Boolean array, Boolean class array. But Boolean class is a child class of the object class. So even though I make it object class, these Boolean values are accepted because Boolean class is a child class of object class. The parent class can accept these Boolean values. Similarly, integer class is a child class of object class. Hence, this value 9 can be assigned. Okay, can be taken by object class. Double class is a child class of object class. Double literals also can be stored into the object. Okay, so then coming to the char is a character class is a child class of the object class, hence it can be stored. Float class is a child class of object class, hence floating point literals can be stored into the object class. Okay, so object array can store values of different literal types into the same variable. But if you go with integer class or character class or Boolean class or double class separately, all the literal types will not be allowed, guys. Only some literal types will be allowed, and other uncompatible literal types won't be allowed. Hence, we have to create an object array so that all the values of this different literal types can be stored into the same array. I can use for each loop now. Each and every element in this particular array is of object class type. So I'll write object here, object x colon AR, and I'll print it out. Okay, system.out.println. I'll print out the object. Okay, X. Now run the code, and all the elements of this object array should be printed in the output. That is 9, 5.5, true, false, yes, 1.2. You see, this is how we can use object arrays to store, okay, the multiple values of different literal types into the same array in Java. Normal arrays, you cannot do that, guys. Okay, arrays can store multiple values into the same variable, but of same data type. But if you go with the object arrays, it is possible in Java to store, okay, values of different literal types into the same array. Okay, only it's possible with object array because object class is a parent class of all the classes in Java. Hence, it can accept all the values of different literal types into the same array. So with practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, what is the parent class of all the classes in Java? Let me answer. Object class is a parent class of all the classes in Java. Whatever the class you take in Java, object class is a parent of such class in Java. I'll prove you that. I'll just open the browser here and search for Java 8 API documentation, and I'll get some link. You can go with any version. I'm going with Java 8. And here you see in this Java 8 API or whatever the Java API we have a lot of predefined classes here. Okay. Abstract action. If I click on this class, you see for this particular abstract action class, the parent is object class. Scroll down somewhere here and let's say ACL entry. ACL entry is another class we have in Java. Okay. For this object class is a parent class. No matter what class you take in Java, for that, for example, here I took something. It's not a class, guys. Okay, I have to take a class. Okay. You see, address helper is a class. Address helper is a class for which object is a parent class. Okay. If you take a class for all the classes in Java, object is a parent class. So randomly, I'm showing here and there different classes in this Java library. You don't have to learn all these classes, guys, but just saying, you see, basic panel UI is one of the class in Java. You see, object is a parent class, okay? Either parent or grandparent, guys, okay? So the root class we have in Java is object class, okay? Object is the root class of all the classes, or parent or grandparent class of all the classes we have in Java. So just keep on going here and there in the documentation. You see object everywhere. You can see that object is a parent class of all the classes we have in Java, okay? So I'll just scroll down here. I'll go here and see it's a class for which object is a parent class, okay? Print exception is a class for which exception is a parent class. A parent of the exception class is throwable and parent of the throwable is object class. Okay. Like that. So anywhere else, you see object is a parent of all the classes, parent or grandparent of all the classes we have in Java. I'll take finally the last one. Let's say zip entry. Zip entry is another class in Java and it has a parent class or object class. That proves that object class is the parent class of all the classes in Java. So what is the advantage? Okay, how we are going to as a Java when I have to write the code using Java programs, how I'm going to take that advantage of the object class, I'll tell you. Okay, so here I'm going to create a new class. I'll say 4, and so let's say I want to store. I'll just declare a variable with the integer wrapper class type, and I would like to store value 9 here. It will accept. If I say 9.5, it will not accept, right? I have to change it to double then. It will accept. What if I change it to 9? It's not accepting. Okay, I cannot store integer value into double wrapper class type. Okay, only integer objects can be stored into integer wrapper class type variables. Okay, so 9.5 I have to change. And if I go with Boolean, error will come. So I have to only store true or false into this Boolean. The true or false is allowed. Like that, we have to keep changing the declaration of this variable with different class types in Java. But if you go with integer wrapper class or Boolean wrapper class or double wrapper class, for all these classes in Java, the parent will be anyhow object class. So instead of Boolean, I'll put object here. You see, I'll not get any error. Whether I put true here, false here, or I put 1.2 here, you see no errors at all. I can store different type of, okay, objects like integer objects, decimal objects, I mean double objects, okay. All the type of values and objects I can store into the variable declared with object class type, because object is a parent class of all the class in Java, including the integer, boolean, char, character, double, float, okay. All these wrapper classes are the child class of object class. Hence, the values that can be stored into the variables declared with integer, double, and all can be stored into this variable, okay, whether it can be a decimal value or integer value or boolean value, character value, doesn't matter. Everything can be stored into the object. Even string literals also can be stored. You see, I can store string literal also without any error. So this is the advantage of using the object class, which is the parent class of all the classes in Java. Okay. So hope guys you got the answer for this question with practical demonstration. What is the parent class of all the classes in Java? object class. Okay. So child class objects can be stored into the variables of the parent classes in Java. So that's the reason we can store different type of values into the variables declared with object class. So, but object class is as per the answer for this question, object is the parent class of all the classes in Java, guys. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello, welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, what is an exception in Java? Let me answer. Exception is nothing but a runtime error. Whenever you are running a program, while the program is getting executed, if you get a particular error, that error is called as a runtime error. Okay? While you are writing the code, or while compiling the code, if you get an error, that is not a runtime error, guys. That is a compiler error. But when you run the code and in the output of the program, if you get an error, such kind of errors are known as runtime errors. You can also call them as exceptions in Java. Okay. Exceptions are nothing but errors which occur in runtime while running the program, while executing the program. Those are runtime errors. Let me practically demonstrate one example for you how exactly a runtime error, which is nothing but an exception in Java. Okay. So I'll go here to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this class as 5 and you can name it anything with the main method I'll create. So what I will try to do here is I'll try to create a variable here. Int A is equal to, let's say 10. Okay. Now int B is equal to, I'll give 0. Now int C is equal to A divided by B. Now system.out.println A, system.out.println, system.out.println B, and then system.out.println C. Like this, I'll create some variables. Okay, I'll print the variables. Now, you see, do you see any compiler error? While I'm writing this code, is a Java compiler. You see, Eclipse IDE will automatically compile the code while you're writing in the editor. Okay, so I didn't get any error. Okay, it doesn't seem that there is a particular error in this program. But when I run this code in the output, you are going to get an error, guys. Okay, at this particular line, that is line 9, you are going to get an error. That is nothing but a runtime error, which is nothing but an exception in Java. You can call it as an exception, which is nothing but a runtime error. Okay, run the code, right click, run as Java application, and observe that I immediately got an exception. Okay, this exception, the name of the exception is arithmetic exception. It is a runtime error. Okay, it's an exception, guys. The reason why we got this runtime error or arithmetic exception or exception in the output is because you are trying to divide a number by 0. In Java programs, you cannot divide a number by 0. Here, the value of B is 0 and value of A is 10. You are dividing the number 10 with the value 0, which is not possible in Java, guys. If you try to divide a number by 0 in Java, you are going to get a runtime error or exception, which is nothing but an arithmetic exception. Okay. And at the line 9, you got this exception. And what's the problem with the exception or runtime error? What will happen in Java when this kind of runtime error or exception occurs? The Java program will stop there itself. Wherever we got an exception, in which line we got an exception, ninth line. After that, whatever the code that is there in this program, that code won't be executed because the Java program will stop here itself because of this runtime error or exception. Okay. So hope guys with practical demonstration, I've explained what exactly is an exception. Exception in Java is nothing but a runtime error which occurs while running the code. Okay. While running the code, and if you get an exception or error in the output, that is called as a runtime error or exception. Okay. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello, welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, what is the difference between array and array list in Java? Let me answer. So the difference between array and array list in Java is, the first one is arrays are fixed in size, whereas array list is dynamic in size. Okay. That means when you create the array, you have to specify the size of the array. That means into that particular array, how many elements you want to store, that you have to fix it. Okay, while creating an array, you have to fix the size of the array. And in the later program, you cannot modify the size of the array. Arrays are fixed in size. Whereas coming to array list is dynamic in size. Okay, that means while creating the array list, you don't have to specify the size of the array list. And you can keep on adding as many number of elements as you want because there is no fixed size in array list. Array list is dynamic in size. Okay, whereas arrays are fixed in size. That is a major disadvantage of the array, right? If anyone asks you what is a major disadvantage of the array, you can say that arrays are fixed in size. That is a major disadvantage of the arrays. Okay, whereas array list is dynamic in size. Okay, you cannot arrays, you cannot modify the size, whereas array list, you can change the size, you can increase the size on the go in the program. Okay, and coming to the array, we can create primitive arrays and non-primitive, that is object-oriented arrays also. Okay, like int primitive data type arrays you can create, or integer wrapper class arrays also you can create. Object-oriented type and primitive type both you can create in arrays. Okay, it's okay. But in array list, primitive data type are not allowed. Only object oriented. Only you can store objects into the array list. Where here you can store the primitive values and objects also into the array. It's possible, but array list only objects guys. Okay, primitive types are not allowed in array list. I'll show you practically all this stuff. Whatever I'm saying theoretically, I'm going to show you practically. Okay, demonstrate practically. Last difference between array and array list is in arrays we use, okay, arrays uses the square brackets either for assigning the elements and for accessing the elements also we use square brackets. And coming to the array list, okay, we have to use methods. Okay, for assigning and accessing, we have to use methods. Okay, like we have some add method and get method. Add method for assigning or adding the elements to this array list on the go, as there is no size limit, and get method for accessing the elements. But here we don't have any methods in arrays. We have to use square brackets. In that we have to provide the index to either access or assign the values to the arrays. Okay. So let me practically demonstrate so that you will get all these differences between this array and array list. The major difference is arrays are fixed in size, array list is dynamic in size. Okay, remaining all are small differences. Okay, let me practically demonstrate array and array list for you. Further, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. Right click new. I'll just create a class. I'll just name this class as 6 with main method. And here, I'm going to create an array first. Okay, integer array AR is equal to new. Here I have to specify the size of the array when I create the array, guys. Okay, while creating the array itself, I have to specify the size of the array, and later in the program, I cannot increase the size. This is arrays are fixed in size, guys. Okay, I can only assign 3 elements to the array. AR of 0 is equal to 9, AR of 1 is equal to 5, AR of 2 is equal to 7. Like that, I can assign 3 elements to this array. But I cannot assign more than 3 elements, guys. If I try to assign more than 3 elements, system.out.println. And here, if I say arrays dot toString of AR, okay, and run this code, you see this array elements will be printed. But I cannot increase the size of the array here because arrays are fixed in size. If I try to store 4th value into the array, I am going to get an exception known as array index out of bounds exception. Okay, you are going to get an exception known as array index out of bounds exception to try to assign 4th element because the array size is fixed. And coming to the array list, okay, and coming to the array list, here for accessing the array elements, we can also write like this: AR of 0, system.out.println, AR of 1, system.out.println, AR of 2. Okay, and this is arrays. And coming to the array list is flexible in size, dynamic in size. Okay, so you don't have to even specify the size while creating the array list. Array list is equal to a list is equal to new array list. Like this, you create an object for the array list, and here provide the square brackets. I mean less than greater than symbol. Sorry. Okay, and hover the mouse on this array list and import it from java.util package. And here guys, I have to specify the type of the objects I would like to store into this array list. I don't have to specify the size, but I have to specify in between this less than greater than symbols what type of values I want to store into this array list. Okay, so here also in array list you can store multiple elements, but they should be object oriented and what type of objects. let's say integer you can store. You cannot provide int here, you'll get an error. You see, unlike arrays, primitive data types are not allowed in array list. You see, int is not accessible, accepted here. If you try to provide int here, you are going to get a compiler error. So I have to change it to the class only. Array list will only store objects, whereas arrays can be created as object oriented and primitive type also, but array list only object oriented type, non-primitive type only we have to create. Now how to add here for assigning the values to this array as elements, we have used AR of 0 is equal to 9, AR of 1 is equal to 5, AR of 2 is equal to 7, right? Here I have to say AR A list dot add of 9. You see, we have methods here. We don't have to use square brackets here. We have to use methods, guys. Okay, 9, 5, then A list dot add of A list dot add of 7. Like this, I have to create. I have to use the methods. Okay? I have to use the methods. Okay, and I can print it out. System dot out dot println A list dot. I have to use another method get of index 0. The first element that is added here will be stored at the index 0. Here also indexing concept is there. Similar to arrays, we have indexing concept in array list. Okay, 0th index. This is the first index. Okay, 5 is stored at the first index. System dot out dot println A list dot get of 1. System dot out dot println A list dot get of 2. Like that, I can provide the indexes, no problem. Okay, and access. And if I try to add one more element, there's no size here. There's no fixed size in array list, so you can add any number of elements. For example, if I add 8 here, if I say system dot out dot println A list dot get of 3, okay, this 8 will be stored. Okay, here write down system dot out dot println. Just write a line here and run the code. Okay, this part you see, and run the code. Right click, run as a Java application, and observe that first 957 got printed, and here after the line we have 9578 got printed. Okay, 9578 got printed. So if you clearly see the difference, all these differences I covered in this program, guys. Okay, so the first thing is arrays are fixed in size, whereas array list is dynamic in size. You see here I have to specify the size of the array, and I cannot modify it. If I try to store more than 3 elements, because I specified the size 3 here, I'm going to get an array index out of bounds exception. Okay. So, and other thing is here array list is not fixed in size. You see nowhere I have specified the size, and any number of elements I want to add, I have to use the add method here to keep on adding the any number of elements into the array list without worrying about the size. Okay, that's why array list is dynamic in size. And coming to the arrays, arrays are both primitive and object oriented. Here you see either you can create primitive arrays like with primitive data type arrays, integer array, or you can create this kind of arrays, guys. Okay, I'll show you another example. You can create object-oriented arrays also. In arrays, both primitive types and object-oriented, that is non-primitive types, are also allowed. Here, instead of int, I'll say integer array, AR is equal to new integer array of 3. I can write like this also. I can create an array like this also, guys. Okay, AR2 I'll say otherwise. Okay, here AR1 I'll say, or here AR I'll say, and here ARI I'll say. Okay, just for the difference. Okay, so AR I of 0 is equal to, I can assign the values like let's say 6. ARI of 1 is equal to 0. AR of I of 2 is equal to 8. Okay. Now system.out.println, system.out.println, AR of I of 0, system.out.println, AR of I of 1, system.out.println, ARI of 2, like this I'll create. Okay. Now run the code. Here you see 957 608 9578. Okay. So here in our arrays, we have both primitive type arrays and object oriented non-primitive arrays. But in array list, only object oriented. Here, if I try to provide primitive data type, instead of integer, if I provide int, I'm going to get a compiler error, which is not possible, guys. I have to provide wrapper class only, object oriented. Only objects can be stored into the array list. Okay. Primitive values cannot be stored. Okay. Because only non-primitive types like wrapper class types only are allowed in array list. Okay. And here arrays use square brackets. You see, square bracket of index, like this array name, square bracket of 0, 1, 2. Like that we can use for assigning the values to the array, and for accessing the array elements also 0, 1, 2 we have to use. And coming to this array list, we have to use methods, guys, okay? Like add methods and get methods we have to use. Add methods and get methods we have to use for assigning and accessing the elements into the array list, okay? So with practical demonstration, I've explained the difference between array and array list in Java. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, what will happen when exceptions occur in Java? Let me answer. First of all, we need to understand what exactly is an exception. Exception in Java is nothing but a runtime error. When you run a program and while the program is running, if you get an error in the output, that particular error is called as a runtime error, which is otherwise also called as exception. Okay, other name for runtime error is nothing but an exception. Okay, the errors which occur while running the program in the output are known as runtime errors or exceptions. You can call any of them. Okay, so what will happen? But the question here is what will happen when a runtime error or exception occurs while running the program in Java? The program will stop at the line where the exception has occurred. Okay. And the remaining lines followed by the line which has given the exception won't be executed, guys. Okay. That's the problem with the exception. What will happen when an exception occurs in Java? When an exception occurs in Java, the program will stop there itself, where at the line which has given that particular runtime error or exception in the output, the program will stop there and remaining lines after that line won't be executed. Okay. So this is what is an exception and what will happen when an exception occurs in Java. Program execution will stop at the line where the exception is occurred in Java program and remaining lines won't be executed. Okay. Let me practically demonstrate this for you. Further, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this as let's say 7. Okay. And create a main method. And inside the main method, I'm going to write some code, okay, which will throw one exception. Okay, int a is equal to 10, int b is equal to 0, okay, and int c is equal to a divided by b. System.out.println a, system.out.println b, system.out.println c. Like that, I'll print all the things. Okay, and here also I'll print system.out.println end of this program. I can write any number of lines here, that's okay. So here in this program, you see Java is not giving any compiler error. Okay, Eclipse IDE automatically compiles the Java code when you write, and Eclipse IDE is not giving you any error, means Java compilation happened and it has not resulted in any error. This particular line, if you clearly observe, okay, will throw you an exception. Okay, when you run the code in the output while program is running at this line 9, we are going to get an exception known as arithmetic exception, because in Java it is not possible to divide a number by 0. Here b is 0 and a is 10. You are trying to divide 10 by 0, which is not possible in Java. Instead, you are going to get an exception known as arithmetic exception. Okay, you are going to get an arithmetic exception here, guys. When an exception occurs in the line 9, what is the problem? What will happen? That's the question. What will happen when exceptions occur in Java code? At the line where the exception has occurred, the program will stop there and remaining statements or remaining lines of code in the Java program, these highlighted lines won't be executed. The value of A will not be printed, B will not be printed, C will not be printed, end of this program will not be printed. None of these statements will be executed because in the line 9, we will get an exception, a runtime error while running the code. And because of the exception, the program will stop abruptly and remaining lines will not be executed. Okay, run the code and observe that the same thing will happen. You see, we got an exception in the line 9. And after that, whatever the print statements are there, they didn't get executed because of this. Okay, they didn't get executed. So this is a problem with the exceptions. Okay, to overcome this problem, we have to handle this exception, guys. Okay, to overcome this problem, we have to handle the exception. Okay, how to handle the exception is not part of the answer for this question, so I'm not answering that, but I'm just giving a heads up, like, when an exception occurs, the program will stop there itself and remaining lines won't be executed. If you still want the remaining lines to be executed, you have to handle the exception. Okay, you have to handle this particular exception in Java. Okay, otherwise the remaining lines won't be executed by default. Okay, so with practical demonstration, I've answered the question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, how to handle exceptions in Java. Let me answer. The simple and straightforward answer for this question is, in Java, if you want to handle the exceptions, you have to use try-catch blocks. Okay. Using try-catch blocks, we can handle the exception or exceptions in Java. I'm going to practically demonstrate this for you. Before that, you need to understand what exactly is an exception is. Exception is nothing but a runtime error. When you run the program, if you are not getting any compiler error in the code, but if you run the code while the code is running, if you are getting some error in the output, such errors are called as runtime errors, which you can also call them as exceptions or exception. Okay. So exception is nothing but a runtime error which occurs while the program is getting executed. Okay. So such kind of errors or exceptions are called as runtime errors or exceptions. Okay. So what is the problem with the exception? What will happen if such kind of runtime error or exception occurs while you're running the code? The problem with the exceptions is, or the runtime errors is, okay, in what line that particular exception or runtime error occurred, that line itself, the program execution will stop. Okay, the program execution will not continue. The program execution will stop at the line where that particular exception or runtime error comes. Okay. So, and remaining lines followed by that particular line giving the exception won't be executed. Okay. Program execution will stop at the line where the exception is occurred in Java programs, and remaining lines after that line won't be executed, guys. Okay. After that line giving the exception, that remaining lines won't be executed. So if you want to continue executing the remaining lines of code despite of getting an exception in some XYZ line, okay, then we have to handle the exceptions in Java. Why we have to handle the exception? To continue the program execution despite of getting the runtime errors. Okay. So how to handle the exceptions? We have to use try-catch blocks. Okay. So we have to use try-catch blocks using which we can handle the exception and we can make sure that the program execution will not stop and will continue the executing the remaining lines of the code. Okay, let me practically demonstrate this for you. For that, I'll switch to the Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just create a new class. I'll just name this class as 8. With main method. Okay. So what happens here is I'm going to create some logic which is going to give you some exception while the program is getting executed. That is int a is equal to 10. Int b is equal to 0. Int c is equal to a divided by b. I'm dividing the number 10 by 0. I'm going to print the value of a. I'm going to print the value of b. I'm going to print the value of c. I'm going to print end of this program here. End of this program also here. Okay. Now run the code. Okay, I have run the code. Observe that we got an exception at the line 9. Okay. Why we got an exception at the line 9? Because you're trying to divide a number by 0, which is not possible in Java. You are not getting any compiler error, but when you run this code, while the program is getting executed in the output, you got an error or exception, runtime error or exception known as arithmetic exception. And the reason is you're trying to divide the number by 0. Okay. So what happens after line 9 is the program execution will stop at the line 9 where the exception occurred, and remaining lines like 10, 11, 12, 13, etc. won't be executed. Okay. This is a problem with the exceptions. Okay. This is a problem with the exceptions. To overcome this problem, to continue the execution of the code despite of getting the exception at this particular line, we have to handle the exception, okay, that comes during the runtime. So to handle that exception, I'll surround this statement with try-catch blocks. Try-catch. You can give arithmetic exception E. And here, I have to handle the exception, guys. I have to handle the exception. So there are different ways of handling the exception. You see, first of all, this variable C, I have to make it global, guys. Okay, in C, I have to say int C is equal to 0. I have to make. Okay. Otherwise, if you simply say int C and assign this here, still you'll get an error to initialize. Okay. You have to initialize. I'll initialize this with some value like 0. Okay. Now here, if exception comes, I'll simply say I'll print out this exception details. Okay. To handle the exception, I'll print out the exception details. I'll just simply print E. Okay. So what happens here is you are trying to divide a number by 0 instead of instead of throwing that exception to the output like this and stopping the program from execution. What happens here is the exception will be handled by this try catch blocks. Try block will throw the exception, and catch blocks will catch that particular exception. And once the catch blocks catch that particular exception thrown by the try block code, okay, it will handle the exception with the code that we have written inside the catch block. Okay, what it's going to do in this case is it's going to print the exception details. That's it. But it's not going to stop the execution of the code. So remaining code will be continuing execution, guys. Okay, remaining code will continue to run. So run the code. This time you see the exception will be handled, and with the help of try catch block, we will be able to handle the exception, and remaining statements will run. You see 10:00 end of this program got printed. So despite of getting an exception here, the program is not halted or stopped. Rather, we have continued the execution by handling the exception with the help of try catch blocks. So hope guys, you got an idea how to handle the exceptions in Java. Using try catch blocks, we have to handle the exceptions in Java. With practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, explain arithmetic exception in Java. Let me answer. In Java, when you write a program and that program is not giving you any compiler error, but when you run the program, you are getting some error in the output, which is nothing but a runtime error, or you can also call that as an exception. There are several exceptions that you see in Java, where arithmetic exception is one of them, which occurs while performing arithmetic operations, which result in some errors. Okay. Arithmetic exception is a runtime error which occurs while performing some arithmetic operations in Java, which are resulting in some errors. For example, if you're trying to divide a number by 0 in Java programs, Java will give you an runtime error known as arithmetic exception, because it's an arithmetic operation which is not supported, which results in generally in error. In mathematics also, you cannot divide a number by 0. In mathematics, they will say that when you try to divide a number by 0, it's infinite. But in Java, this operation is not supported. Okay, infinite thing is not supported in Java. Hence, this arithmetic operation where you are dividing a number by Java in Java program will result in a runtime error. The error that you see while running the program is nothing but arithmetic exception. Yes. Let me practically demonstrate this. So this is a major example that people give you for explaining the arithmetic exception in Java. Okay. Unfortunately, other examples doesn't exist much. Okay. So majorly, when you are working with Java programs, the arithmetic operation like dividing a number by 0 results in a runtime error, which is nothing but an arithmetic exception. This is the best example for supporting the arithmetic exception explanation in Java as part of an answer for this question. Okay. So everyone gives you the same answer, guys. Okay. So how do you get arithmetic exception in Java? There may be other ways of getting arithmetic exception in Java while performing arithmetic operations which are not supported by Java. But the major one that people give an example is dividing a number by 0 to get this arithmetic exception. Okay. Let me practically demonstrate this for you. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this class as 9 with the main method. And here I'll create a variable or write a logic where one of the variable I'll store some number, and another variable I'll try to store 0. Okay. And in another variable, I try to assign the value of or the result of dividing a number a by b. Okay. I'm trying to divide the number a, that is a 10 number, by b, that is 0. If I try to divide 10 by 0, this line will result in an arithmetic exception, because this is not possible in Java. In Java, it's not possible to divide a number by 0, guys. If you try to do so, you are going to get an arithmetic exception. Okay, a runtime error will come. If I try to print A, try to print B, and try to print C, okay, and run the code here, you see none of these statements will be printed, because in the line 9 itself, we'll get an exception here, runtime error here. line 9 only, we got a runtime error or exception known as arithmetic exception. This has been caused by the arithmetic operation where you are trying to divide a number by 0. That's why we got this runtime error or exception known as arithmetic exception. Okay, this is the best example for arithmetic exception. And what happens in Java when you get an exception? The remaining lines after the exception will not be executed, guys. Okay, will not be executed because of the exception. So arithmetic exception occurs while performing arithmetic operations like dividing a number by 0, which are not supported by Java. Okay. So this is a perfect example for arithmetic exception in Java, guys. Okay. So with practical demonstration, I actually answered and explained what exactly an arithmetic exception is in Java and how, and with an example, I covered that. Okay. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all, welcome to this session. In this session, I am going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, write a Java program to handle arithmetic exception. Let me answer. First of all, we need to know what exactly is an exception in Java. Exception is nothing but a runtime error. While writing the Java code, Java will not give you any compiler error. But when you run the same code, in the output, you will get an error, which is called as a runtime error. In other words, we also can call it as an exception. One such kind of exception that occurs while you run the Java program is arithmetic exception. So I need to write a Java program. As part of answering this question, I need to write a Java program to handle the arithmetic exception. But how to handle the arithmetic exception? With the help of try catch block. And in the catch block, we'll use this predefined clause known as arithmetic exception class to handle this arithmetic exception. So let me practically demonstrate how to write a Java program to handle the arithmetic exception now. For that, I'll switch to this Eclipse IDE. Here, I'm going to create a new class. I'll just name this class as 10. You can give any name with main method. Inside the main method, I'll write some code which will result in a runtime error known as exception. In other words, arithmetic exception. Okay, I'll write the logic for, which will throw an arithmetic exception. Okay, integer a is equal to int a is equal to 10. I'll say int b is equal to 0. I'll say. Okay, now int c is equal to a divided by b. Now this particular line where you're trying to divide the number, some number, let's say 10, with a 0. Okay, in Java, if you try to divide a number by 0, that will result in a runtime error. While running the code, you'll get an error in the output. That is a runtime error. You'll not get any Java compiler error. You see, while writing the code, I didn't get any compiler error. But when I run the code, in the output, I'll get an exception or a runtime error stating that you cannot divide a number by 0. Okay, arithmetic exception you will get. So when you get an exception, what will happen? When you get an exception, in this particular 9th line, you will get an exception. After 9th line, all the remaining lines will not be executed. Okay. If in Java programs, at a particular line, if you get an exception, the remaining lines won't be executed, guys. Okay. The remaining lines won't be executed. System.out.println. Okay. System.out.println. Some sample lines I'm writing, end of this program. Okay. There are multiple lines here. So when I run this code, okay, there is some problem coming. Sometimes this kind of issues will come, guys. Okay, we don't know why they are coming. Just close the file and open again. There may be some like some temporary glitches. You see, the error is not coming. It got resolved. So the problem here is when I run this program, you see, Java compiler is not coming for this particular statement. But when I run the code, as you are trying to divide a number by 0, in the output, you will get a runtime error or exception known as arithmetic exception, because of which the remaining lines won't be executed. These remaining lines that I highlighted here, after this line which is giving an exception, won't be executed because of the exception. That's why we have to handle the exception. First, I'll show you the exception, and because of which the remaining lines won't be executed. Right-click run as Java application. You see, we got an exception in the line 9, arithmetic exception, because you are trying to divide the number by 0. We got that exception at the line 9. After the line 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, whatever the lines that are coming after this line 9 are not getting executed because in the line 9, we got an exception known as arithmetic exception. To resolve this problem, where the remaining statements or remaining lines of code are not getting executed in this program, we have to handle this arithmetic exception that is coming in the output while running the code. Okay. To handle that, this particular line I'll surround with try block. The line which is responsible for giving that arithmetic exception during the runtime. while running the code. I'll surround with the try block and I'll provide a catch block. At the end of the try block, this starting of the try block, this ending of the try block. At the ending of the try block, I'll provide a catch block. This starting of the catch block and this ending of the catch block. And in the catch block, since I have to handle which exception, here what exception is coming? Arithmetic exception is coming. So this is a predefined class, guys. Arithmetic, this is an object of an arithmetic exception is being thrown. Okay, this statement is throwing an object of an arithmetic exception class to the Java. And Java is stopping this program and giving this exception in the output, runtime error in the output. To handle this exception, we have to use try catch block, where we have to capture this object thrown for this arithmetic exception class and capture it here in the object reference of the same class. Okay, in the catch block, we'll use the same class, guys. You can copy this class if you want, arithmetic exception class, or you have to type manually, up to you. And after that, I'll give some object reference. You can give any name for this object reference. So the object for the arithmetic exception clause, which is thrown here, okay, will now be catched by this catch block. Okay, earlier when try catch block was not there, when we are not handling the exception without try catch block, this object for the arithmetic exception class is thrown to the Java. Okay, Java JVM, etc., who is running the program. And since it got an object of the arithmetic exception, the program execution will stop and exception details will be displayed in the output. Okay, error will be displayed in the output. But now the object of the arithmetic exception, whatever that is thrown by this statement, highlighted statement, right, will be catched by this object reference of this predefined class, arithmetic exception class. And now it holds this. And here in the catch block, I can write the code for handling this particular exception instead of stopping the program there itself. Okay. To handle the exception, I'll write the code like this: system.out.println. I'll print this object reference. Okay. When I print the object reference, it will also print the details of arithmetic exception. Okay. Or I can even write a prompt normal statement like system.out.println arithmetic exception got handled here. Okay. Like that I can write. But there is a problem here. You see, the variable C is not global. If you create a variable inside the try block, this variable will become a local variable for this try block. Okay. The scope of the variable is up to the try block only. Outside the try block, you cannot access this variable. So I have to declare this variable C outside the try block. Like this, I have to declare and remove the declaration from inside the try block. Okay. Now this is now accessible throughout the method. Okay. So now it is accessible, but still there is a problem because all the local variables which are created inside the method need to be initialized. Okay. It's initialized inside the try block, but try block code will not be visible outside. The scope of the try block is up to the try block only. So initializing is happening inside the try block, but here the variable cannot see this particular initialization. So it's asking you to initialize this variable with some value. I'll give the 0 as the value. Okay, let's say. Okay. So here after performing the operation 10 divided by 0, you have to, the result will go here. If not, 0 will come. Okay, something like that. So now what happens here is the errors are gone. We have handled the arithmetic exception here properly. We are trying to divide the number by 0. This will throw an arithmetic object of the arithmetic exception class, which will be captured by this object reference. And when you print it, arithmetic exception got handled here will be printed because of this print statement as part of handling. And remaining statements will get executed, will continue executed because we have handled the arithmetic exception here. Okay. So here A value 10 will be printed, B value 0 will be printed, C value 0 will be printed. Here exception is thrown, this operation is not done. So the original initialized value 0 will be printed, end of this program will be printed. Run the code and observe that in the output, you will get arithmetic exception got handled here, 10:00 end of this program. Okay, 10:00 end of this program will be printed. Okay, so here the program execution has continued because we have successfully handled the arithmetic exception with the help of this predefined class known as arithmetic exception class in Java. Okay, so this is how we have to write a Java program in order to handle the arithmetic exception, guys, with the help of try catch block. And in the catch block, by creating an object reference for arithmetic exception predefined class, we can handle arithmetic exception successfully in Java. With practical demonstration, I've answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye. Hello all. Welcome to this session. In this session, I'm going to answer one of the Java interview questions. That is, write a Java program to handle array index out of bounds exception. Let me answer. First of all, exception is nothing but a runtime error. When you write the code in a Java file, and if the compiler is not giving you any error, and when you run the same code, you're getting an error in the output. Okay. In that case, that error is known as runtime error, or you can also call it as an exception. There are different exceptions we get while running the Java programs. So one of such kind of runtime error or exception is nothing but array index out of bounds exception. Okay. So such kind of exception, how to handle by writing a Java program? Simple. In order to handle any exception in Java, the only way is to use try-catch blocks. Okay. So using the try-catch block, we can handle not only this exception, any other exception also in Java. And for handling, especially this array index out of bounds exception, we have to use this predefined class known as array index out of bounds exception class in the catch block of this try-catch block while handling this exception. So let me practically demonstrate writing a Java program to handle this array index out of bounds exception. First, I will show you when does this array index out of bounds exception occur. After that, I'll show you how to handle such kind of exception. Okay. For that, I'll switch to Eclipse IDE and create a new class. I'll just name this class as 1. With main method, I'll create. Okay. Inside the main method, I'm going to create an array, integer array, AR is equal to new integer. I'll just specify the size of the array as 3. That means into this particular array, I can only store 3 elements. The size of the array is 3. So if I try to assign some values to this array, like AR of 0 is equal to 9, AR of 1 is equal to 5, AR of 2 is equal to 7. Here I assigned 3 elements to the array. And if I try to assign 4th element to this array, already the size of the array is 3. And if I try to assign 3 elements to the array, I'm not getting any compiler error. Even when I run the program also, I'll not get any error in the output. Okay. Even when I run this program, I'll not get any error in the output. You see, no error coming in the output. But when I try to store the 4th element into the array, whose size is only 3, in such cases, we will get an exception, an error. You'll not get any compiler error from Java saying that you cannot add 4th element into this array. But when you run this program in the output, you are going to get a runtime error or exception known as array index out of bounds exception, because the size of the array is 3, but you are trying to store 4th element into the array. That is the reason you are going to get an error at the line 12 in this program when you run. And the reason for that error, or the name of the exception that you get as a runtime error in the output, is array index out of bounds exception. And the reason is index 3 out of bounds for length 3. The size of the array is 3. And here you are using index 3 for storing 4th element into the array. Okay, which is not possible. It is indirectly stating. Okay, at the 12th line, we got an exception. What happens when you get such kind of error? The remaining statements, you see, at the line 12, you got an exception, means from line 13 onwards, nothing will be executed in this program, whether you print AR of 0, okay, system.out.println, AR of 1, all this code will not be executed, guys, okay? So when you run this code, when you get a particular exception at a particular line, the program execution will stop there at the same line, 12th line, and it will not continue with the remaining lines, because at the 12th line, we got an exception, that is array index out of bounds exception or runtime error. And because of which the remaining code in this remaining lines in this particular code will not be executed, guys, okay? Because of the exception, the program execution will abruptly stop at the 12th line and will not continue, and none of these elements got printed. So how to overcome this problem? In order to overcome this problem, we have to surround this, okay, code with try-catch blocks. Okay, we have to surround the code which is going to provide a runtime error in try-catch block. I'll just provide this inside a try-catch block. Try. Here I'll say catch. And here I'll say, or we can do one thing. Instead of providing only one element, I'll just, provide all these elements. Okay, let's say you can also write like this, not a problem. 4th line, you are getting an exception, right? So not a problem. So here, catch. Here, array index out of bounds exception E. Like this, you have to write this predefined class. So what happens when you run this code is this 13th line now, when you are trying to store this particular 4th element into the array having the size 3, will throw an object of array index out of bounds exception. And if you have not used this try-catch blocks for handling the exception, this object of this array index out of bounds exception will go through the JVM who is running the program and because of which the program will stop abruptly while printing this exception details or runtime error details in the output. Okay, but what if you handle this, surround this particular code with try block, and you provide this array index out of bounds exception class in the catch block and with object reference, and import this from java.lang package. Okay, so somehow it is not happening. So let me save this. You don't have to import actually, but because it's coming, but it's not happening. Let me close and open once. Maybe it's some temporary glitch. Okay, so what's the problem here? Array index out of bounds exception. Everything looks good. Control Shift O. No, nothing is happening. Okay, if I give exception here, it's going off. And if I give array index out of bounds exception, this is the complete name of the exception, guys, and somehow it's not working. So hover the mouse, and if I import also, it's not happening, guys. Okay, so there is some temporary glitch. Let me restart my Eclipse IDE. Sometimes it happens, guys. Okay, some temporary glitches. I don't think it should be a problem. Otherwise, if I am doing any mistake, we can find it out, or just restart the Eclipse IDE once. Okay, I think it should be resolved. Just wait for the Eclipse IDE to launch. This kind of situations will happen, guys. Okay, maybe when I'm recording this session, it's happening, but that's okay. Let's try to resolve in the same session where I'm getting this kind of problem. So it may take a while for this Eclipse IDE. The Eclipse IDE has been launched now after restarting, but still I can see this error coming, the cache block. Let's see. This is try block. This is catch block. Everything looks good. Some progress is going on. Let's wait. Still, it's not resolved. Import. It's not going away. Okay, so one main method, array, try block. What if I provide this here? Still, I'm getting an exception, right? So it's not about that line. But if I give any other class, it's working fine. If I write arithmetic exception here, what's happening? Let's see. Just for a while, just for experiment, arithmetic exception. Error is still coming for arithmetic exception. Import it. Import is not happening. There is some temporary problem, guys. Okay. So it is from which package? Java.lang. It's the Maven project, right? So we'll do one thing. Such kind of cases, right click on the project. Right click on the Maven project and go to Maven and simply say update project. Say okay. Let's see this way. Okay, building done. Arithmetic exception also, the exception is coming, but in another example, I have taken that right where. Just give me a second. Let me see. Here, when I write the same code, where is that? Sorry. I think it's 9, I guess. Okay, not this one. Here also exception is coming. Earlier it was not coming, guys. Now it's suddenly coming somehow. Why this exception is coming? 1 minute. Let me do some R&D and fix this. Okay, guys, I was able to, resolve this problem. I just did something like this, right click. So run as Maven clean, I did that. After that, again, right click and then Maven and update project I did, and the error is gone. Okay, somehow it's a temporary glitch, guys. It's not a real problem. You are writing properly. Here I have to write array index out of bounds exception. Okay, this problem should not come, but it has come suddenly for me while recording this video as an answer for this question. Okay, but I was able to resolve this because it's a Maven project. I have to build the project, clean the project and all. It is working fine. Okay, so fine. Okay, so here in this line 14, it will throw an object of array index out of bounds exception that I have written in the catch block. And this object reference of this class will capture that object of the exception that is thrown here. And here I'll simply write down it the normal print statement saying array index out of bounds exception exception got handled here. It got handled here. Okay, and remaining lines will get executed. Okay, run this code, right click, run as Java application. You see, the exception got handled and the remaining lines of code got executed, because of which this array elements got printed here, 957. Okay, so this is how we can handle an array index out of bounds exception by writing a Java program using try catch block. In the catch block, we have to specify the object reference of this array index out of bounds exception predefined class. By doing that, we can handle this array index out of bounds exception in Java programs. So with practical demonstration, I answered this question for you. So that's all for this session. Thank you. Bye-bye.